Senator, even as we sit here tonight, Hurricane Ike is bearing down on the Texas coast. What are the lessons that we learned from Hurricane Katrina, where we had the largest voluntary outpouring in American history? And aren't emergencies and disasters like this exactly why government needs to exist? What is the role of the private sector and what is the role of government?
The role of government obviously is the primary role, and to protect our citizens and help them in times of emergency and distress. But also I think there's a great role for faith-based organizations, volunteer organizations, and the private sector. I think we've got to involve more businesses and industries that routinely provide goods and services rather than rely on the federal government to do it. I don't think, frankly, if FedEx or Target or one of these organizations had been in charge, we wouldn't have had a truck full of ice ending up in Maine. They know where everything is. So we need to have that partnership. But I also want to point out that faith-based organizations, as well as other volunteer organizations, did a magnificent job. There's a place called the Resurrection Baptist Church down in New Orleans. Thousands of volunteers from churches all over the country came and are still working in New Orleans as we speak. So the primary role is government, but we also need to have citizen involvement in a way which, to say the least, we all know you need a better level of cooperation between federal, state, and local government. We saw that. We saw that a dramatic improvement in this last threat we had, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Texas and the area that's threatened now, and we pray, God, that it's minimal and we're ready to help. That's the primary responsibility of government.
Senator, it's been pointed out that for many people to be able to do volunteer work, they are often people of some means. They can take a leave from their job, or they may not need to work. Often volunteer work, service, is left to those who are more comfortable, whereas other people, especially young people who want to do service, may graduate from college with a huge education debt. How do you balance that?
Well, first of all, my experience has not been that the wealthiest people do the most volunteering. In fact, I think it is average citizens that do the most, in all due respect to rich people. But the point, it seems to me it's the average citizen that's the first to respond. But I agree with you. We should provide, especially from a business standpoint, if someone graduates from a fine institution or university, then we hope that the people that hire them would give them additional time to maybe go down and volunteer in a Habitat for Humanity or some other worthwhile cause. But honestly, you know what I've found? The busiest people are the busiest. And the busier they get, the busier they get. And the more time they find to help their neighborhood, their community, and their fellow citizens.
So there's no need.
I'm very pleased at the volunteer effort in America. I'm very pleased at what we've seen around this country, particularly as we're in difficult times. I think we can be proud of Americans. And obviously, if we need to take some steps to encourage that or make it easier for them, I'm all for it.
Would you encourage corporations to give paid leave for service, which some companies are doing, like Timberland?
If they want to, but I wouldn't force them to. If they want to do that, I would praise them, I would cite them as an example, but I don't think we can force that kind of thing.
Let's go to a different subject, a subject that's close to your heart. In Faith of My Fathers, you write about how there's been a McCain who has fought in pretty much every American conflict going back 200 years. That's a huge legacy that was thrust on you. You talk about it being a little bit intimidating. What I wonder is if you talk personally about how that was conveyed to you as a boy, and then how you conveyed that to your own children.
Well, you know, a lot of times I don't talk too much publicly because I'm not a hero. I had the great honor of serving in the company of heroes, and in Hanoi I observed 1,000 acts of courage and compassion and love. But I'd like to tell you that one day as a child I said, gee, I'm gonna, be in military service. But it was just sort of something that was part of our tradition, and I rebelled against it. I chronicle that, perhaps in too much detail. But it sort of was something that evolved. But then it was like a lot of young Americans. A lot of that glory was all about me. And it wasn't until I had the experience that I had that I realized that I belonged to my country and that my country saved me, and I owed my country a great deal. And that change made me appreciate the fact that it's not about the individual, it's about the cause we serve.
Senator, still on the subject of military, in the wake of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, we know that recruiting has gotten harder. The qualifications for joining the Army have been lowered today. 30% of new enlistees don't have high school diplomas. That's the highest percentage ever. The percentage of young people who are either Black, Hispanic, or who come from a lower income household is disproportionately high in the military. All this while the sons and daughters of privilege, for the most part, your sons excluded, don't have to consider military service. We have the greatest fighting army in the world. I think everyone would agree. But is there something about this picture that you think needs to change, this social imbalance?
Well, I would remind you in the days of the draft that it was then most unfair because the lowest income Americans served and the wealthiest found ways of avoiding a draft. I think the all-volunteer force is having difficulties recruiting and retaining because we're too small, and we need to expand the size of our military, and we need to do it as rapidly as possible. And we've got to perhaps offer additional incentives. For a long time, years ago, the Navy and the Air Force were losing pilots, so we paid them more, and we had more of them stay in. Their first reason for serving is patriotism, but also you've got to offer them incentives in order to do so. And frankly, we're here in a wonderful institution. I'm proud that my daughter graduated from this school. But do you know that this school will not allow our OTC on this campus? I don't think that's right. Shouldn't the students here be exposed to the attractiveness of serving in the military, particularly as an officer? So maybe I would hope that these universities would re-examine. I would hope that these universities would re-examine that policy of not even allowing people to come here who represent the military and other Ivy League schools, and then maybe they will be able to attract some more. Now that's not the heart of the problem, but I believe that we have the best trained, most professional, best equipped, bravest military we've ever had in our history today.
And we'll come back to this. We'll be right back after this break.